Hello, good evening. Welcome to our presentation on English literature and language this evening. Hope that a lot of the information will be helpful and you'll be able to ask questions. The main presenter today will be Gerald Hincliffe. He is an experienced teacher who will talk to you in detail about the course. And then there is our student Hannah. Now, Hannah unfortunately can't stay with us for the whole evening or the whole presentation. So I wanted to begin by asking Hannah about her experiences. She's a year 13 student, so she's been here for the duration of both year 12 and 13 now. And we thought it would be nice for you to begin by listening to what she felt she's gained from the course, maybe, Hannah, what you have found interesting and what skills you've learned. So in your own words.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like the course has taught me quite a lot about myself. I feel like something that is really useful is, like, in year 11, I wasn't that confident in English, and I felt that I wasn't very strong in it. And through Hills, I feel like I've really improved my confidence levels and obviously my writing skills and all of the techniques that you have to learn. I would say that it's a very versatile course. You learn all of the different aspects that you need to know, from writing techniques to different styles of writing. And at the moment, I'm really enjoying the coursework aspect that we're having to do. And I'm writing a monologue, which is really, really fun. Yeah, and it's a really great course.
Actually, Hannah's been really very kind because she's come in today. She's been at all day working hard, so we're really pleased to have her. She's very enthusiastic, as you can see. So thank you, Hannah. So I'll pass over to Dal now to give you an introduction to the course.
Right, hello. Welcome to Hills Road and to the English Language and Literature Department. I do hope you can hear me clearly. I noticed that there might be a few problems with the sound. Sorry about that. We'll try and fix that. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is just talk through a few slides here about the nature of the English Language and Literature course. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can ask those at the end, or you can type them into the chat and we'll get back to them later on. So I suppose the first thing we'll say is that generally at Hills Road, but also specifically in our department, we like to feel that we're offering a number of challenges to students, thinking about ideas in new ways, challenging concepts, new terminology, new problems that perhaps students haven't come across before. They're all part of the A-level. Have you ever thought about the differences between written language and spoken language, for example, and what that might entail? It's a very complex issue. That's one of the issues that we do engage with. In lessons, we like to engage all students in debates and discussions. We have whole classroom discussions. We have debates, in small and large groups in the lesson format, as well as debates that might spill into written forms as well. We like to encourage students to think independently. That's one of the key things, so that by the end of the course, you should be able to explore text and analyze them in quite sophisticated ways, using terminology and methods that you didn't think exist you don't think exist at the moment, but they really do. So we're also questioning students' assumptions, getting people to see the world, to see their own ideas from different points of view and different perspectives. What is the course content? What do we cover in the course? Well, basically there are three components. Two of those are part of the examination components, and the third is a coursework element. And I'll just say a few things about each in turn. So the first element is the voices in speech and writing. And there's a real emphasis on different voices, different personalities, different ideologies as they feed into texts. So one of the set texts on the course is the Voices Anthology. You can see a photograph of it there with a parrot on the cover. And this is a very slim anthology. It contains 20 short pieces of text, all of which are non-literary. That's to say that they aren't literature. They aren't in the form of poetry drama or fiction, but they include things like autobiographical writing, travel writing, memoirs, blogs, podcasts, journalistic writing, and so forth, and as well as political speeches as well. So some of it's written, some of it's spoken, and we learn how to analyse those. We learn about the text in some detail. Drama is also assessed on the same exam paper, and that's All My Sons. That's a play we're doing at the moment, which is a mid-20th century American play based on very serious political, moral, social issues, as well as being something of a landmark in 20th century dramatic writing. So that's the component one. Component two is called Varieties in Language and Literature. And in this, there are two elements again. We've got the unseen prose non-fiction. For short, we usually refer to this as the unseen. And this entails a situation where you're given in the exam a piece of writing that you've never come across before, never seen before. It will be in the genre that we've looked at, and the genres are similar to those that appear in the Voices anthology. Again, this is non-literary, so it's not literature. But you could find yourself analysing a piece of historical writing about, say, the Second World War, or about Vietnam, or something like that. You might find yourself reading an autobiographical piece by a famous celebrity. It could be a newspaper article, and so on. So it's something that's unseen, but you will have, over the 2 years, studied all of these genres sufficiently so that you're well drilled in how to analyse and explore them systematically. The second component is prose fiction and other genres. This is the literature component of this particular paper. And at the moment, we're studying prose fiction in the form of F. Scott Fitzgerald's novel, The Great Gatsby, one of the great 20th century novels, an American novel from the 1920s. And the other text we're looking at is from a different genre, poetry, and it's Philip Larkin's 1960s poetry book called The Wits and Weddings. And in this particular paper, what you have to do is, first of all, study the two texts, understand them just as you would any literature text, and ultimately compare and contrast them in a question that covers both in the exam paper. And then we come to Hannah's favourite bit, which is the component on the coursework called the non-examined assessment. We don't call it coursework anymore for various reasons, slightly beyond me, but there you go. It's called Investigating and Creating Texts. And this is a creative writing component where, we do this. Literature doesn't have a creative component, so we do in the combined literature and language element. And what you do here is you look at stimulus text, you look at fiction text and non-fiction. So you might find yourself looking at, say, the writings of Bill Bryson as a travel writer, and 1984 by George Orwell. And one's fiction and one's non-fiction. And what you have to do, you can choose from a selection, of course, with that, and I've just chosen those as examples. But you can then choose to write a response to them in some way. So you might write your own short story based on 1984, or you might write an extra scene at the end of the novel, or a scene before the novel begins, in which you are adopting the style of Orwell and so forth into your writing. And then you'll do something similar if you've chosen Bill Bryson. You might write about travel, your experiences of traveling to the United States or traveling in through Europe, and you'll adopt some of the methods of writing and the stylistic techniques of Bill Bryson. And that's a creative component. So it's a recreative task. You are responding to creative writing by other people, but you're also doing creative writing of your own. The second part of this is the analytical commentary, where you write an essay which is basically explaining and exploring what you've done in some detail analytically. So you demonstrate to the examiner that you really do know your stuff, and that you understood the text you were basing your work on, and you understand your own choices of style and so forth. Okay, so that's the structure of the course. English language, how does it compare with the other two components? Well, there's a number of bullet points on the screen there. Basically, if you're studying English language, what you will be studying is the structure and the use of real English language in real situations. You'll be looking at how language evolves over time and the history of language. You'll be looking at the use of language in society, how different social groups differentiate themselves. Why do northern people like myself say path and southerners say path? You'll be looking at that kind of issue, more sophisticated issues certainly related to that. You'll be looking at how children learn language. You'll be looking at how language might have changed over time. So, in doing some coursework on that, one coursework piece I always remember is a student who listened to the Queen's annual speech over a number of years at Christmas and noticed how her accent had changed, how her pronunciation of certain key words had changed from 1952 or whatever, 1953 rather, through to the present day. Very interesting historical study. So that's the kind of thing you do on language. It's not text-based. So you're not studying text. Now, the thing about language and literature is that everything you're doing is studying a text. It will be a text that's either a literature text, or it's a text that's a piece of journalism or a piece of travel writing or whatever. So that's a fundamental difference. So you might find that useful to know. In that sense, the combined course is a lot like literature. Literature also is based on the study of texts, but it's based only on the study of literary texts. And what we mean by that is fiction, novels, we mean poetry and drama. So they're the only things that you study in literature. In the combined course, we look at all these other genres, including electronic genres like podcasts and so on, as well as journalism and political speeches. So we do study a much broader range of text types. Also, we only study, 5 texts over the course. We look at a novel, Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby, poetry, The Wits and Weddings, and drama, Arthur Miller. And we also look at the 2 coursework texts. I suppose you could say there's a 6th text in the form of Voices, which is a text we need to know our way around, but it's not literature as such. Whereas in the literature course, you actually study 8 courses. It's all focused on literature. And another thing about the combined course is that the oldest text that we study will be the F. Scott Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby. So the focus of the texts that we study is very modern, gives it a fresh and exciting look. Whereas literature, it's Shakespeare onwards. You're doing Shakespeare, you could find yourself studying Thomas Hardy as a novel, and you will certainly find yourself studying John Keats as poetry. So there's a much broader range historically than there is on the other.
I'm going to just interject just quickly, if you don't mind. It was just to say that in the creative writing part, however, students can respond as stimulus to the Shakespeare or to something earlier. So we didn't study that course, but actually they can respond to that earlier kind of literature if they wish to. So I think it's important. So there's a range there. We're just doing different things with it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there is that range. You can choose Shakespeare as a stimulus text in the work for us. Yeah, thank you. Good. Okay, so what skills will students gain? Well, you'll learn how to do a number of things which perhaps you can partly do now or have not even developed the skills to do yet. But you'll be able to analyze text with great detail using all the technical terminology, and you'll be able to do that in a very independent way by the end of the course. You'll be able to analyze things you've not seen before. You put it in front of you and you'll be able to say 12 things about it immediately. You'll be able to interpret and evaluate texts. You'll be working on your own written expression. We do like students to improve their structuring of essays and arguments and their writing style. You'll construct arguments. You'll know how to embed evidence. So those of you that want to be lawyers or politicians or whatever, you might find that useful. It fits in that way. You'll improve and be able to work on your own creative writing skills in the coursework in particular. You'll get experience of drafting and redrafting work. You'll be able to apply new ideas to text, and you'll be open to new ideas by the end of the course, I hope. There'll be, it says, expand your comparative skills. So yeah, constantly through the course, there's this interest in comparing. So you'll develop that ability to compare A with B, apples with oranges or whatever. You will be able to do it after a while and find points of similarity. That's a good transferable skill across a whole range of sort of courses and job types and so on. Integrating ideas, linking together different aspects of a problem, and ultimately becoming, and this is why we've left it to the last bullet point, ultimately becoming a more reflective and independent learner. So you'll be able to reflect on your own learning, and you'll be able to assess and evaluate your own work. And that's a cool skill to have. If anyone wants to ask questions about that, by all means, type them in. A couple of other things I'll just mention. We have 6 assessment points through the year. You basically, key assessment points around which the rest of the year is built. You can talk about those more if you wish later on, about the assessment types. But when you first come to this college, we are aware of the step up from GCSE. So we give you a lot of help by scaffolding your early works. You will be able to learn how to structure work, how to structure arguments, how to build introductions, how to embed evidence, and so forth. We model essays. We show you model essays. We get you to explore the good qualities of real students' essays, and to be alerted to some of the weaknesses and flaws here and there along the way. We of course assess your work and give you lots of feedback at a number of points, but we also encourage peer assessment and self-assessment at different times of the year. And we have various assessment types. We have essays, we have paragraph writing, we'll have short. Occasionally there's quizzes. I mean, that's something we need to develop just to test your knowledge. So there's an always developing range of assessment types. And the focus is always on getting you to reflect on how you learn, what your good habits are, what your bad habits are, not your bad habits, I almost said that then, your bad habits, and to evaluate your strengths and to reapply them in your work. We offer in the department, of course, support in the class. We have a range of teachers who are very qualified and very interested in the subject, and we're up to date in the latest ideas. As I said a few minutes ago, we're interested in that process of moving from GCSE to A-level, so the transition is heavily scaffolded. We provide peer group support. There's an increasing use of learning teams within groups and that kind of thing to get students to work. And we certainly get students to work in small groups in lessons when we can. And that's a way of sharing knowledge and skills just amongst the students. We provide lunchtime sessions with EMF Plus, English Media Film Plus, usually abbreviated just to English Plus. And you may find yourself in one of those groups. We may advertise a topic for the students at lunchtime. If they want to drop in and self-select to come along and ask questions that they're not sure about. Alongside that, there are smaller group sessions where students may be identified and invited to join in groups to develop particular skills that they may have missed or may need to have some support with. And ultimately as well, there's also the department support for university applications. So we do supply support for students on the opposite end, leaving the college as well as coming in. Extension and enrichment, we've had a range of visiting speakers over the years. We have good connections with Cambridge University and Anglia Ruskin University. We have speakers, lecturers in English and linguistics and language and so on coming in at times. It's been a bit disrupted this year though, due to the obvious reasons of the COVID-19 situation. So we've had that, and some of that has migrated to Zoom. So that's quite good. But we do bring in people from outside other sources as well, not just the universities, but writers have come in. We've got some connections with some writers, and they come in and talk about techniques of fiction writing and that kind of thing. We, as it says, joint activities and ventures with Cambridge and other HE providers. We like to provide students with reading lists of recommended reading and viewing lists for recommended films here and there. I mean, they appear in the corridors. Whether students always notice them is a different matter. And individual teachers will sometimes offer these reading lists as well in relation to set texts, perhaps. We do have some students who have actually got involved with interesting events in the past. We've had one student have some work published in Media Magazine, the A-level Media Magazine, and some students also became competition judges for a film competition, I believe. So all of that's good stuff. It shows you the connections that we have and the interest we have in developing students' skills. So that's that slide. I think we can move on to the next one. Here's a few facts we can just zip through, and if you wish to have any questions answered about any of this, note them down or type them into the chat boxes and we'll get back to you later. This will come to an end, I promise. I am going on rather a long time, sorry about that. But you'll notice the results we're getting, they're very positive. 100% of our students get an A star to E, so they all get pass grades. That's our experience in recent years. And we get 63% A star to B, where the national average is 40%. And of course, we're constantly thinking of ways to push that percentage up. There's a big push on that at the moment. So, that's something that we're working on. And it's something we're quite proud of. So, always happy to talk about that. If you're curious about what the use of that language and literature is as a subject, how is it useful for you to go on beyond the college? Well, obviously, we've got a list there of all the students who went to higher education, and I'm told that every single student from that year's cohort went to higher education last year. That's not always the case. I mean, we normally get students going into work as well, but this particular year, 97% went into HE, 3% went into FE, further education. So obviously some of them are there doing English courses. You can see that in the bullet point. Some have gone on using English as part of their package to study French, German languages and so on at other universities. A few other subjects have studied social anthropology, primary education, journalism, politics and international development. So it shows that as part of a package of A-levels, English is flexible and does allow students to move into higher education. That's English language and literature, not just English generally. I'm talking just about the specific specification of Lang Lit.
Okay. What I wanted to do with you two students, if you don't mind, is talk a little bit. There's a question here, and a couple of questions which you might like to answer. These are about class sizes, I think. But have you found your class size to be a way of developing your learning? Because they range from 18 to 22, the class size, I suppose. So have you found it good to work with a range of people? I know it's difficult now because of the nature of the way that we're learning in this pandemic. But nonetheless, have you found it useful to have different voices in the classroom? Could you just talk to me about your experience in the classroom? Is that just for both of you, really? And that might help answer some of the questions I've got here.
Well, I found that all the class sizes made it so that everyone interacted, and you not only had your perspective, but you had everyone's perspective on a certain text, and it made you think of ideas that you wouldn't usually have gotten straight away.
That's quite important, isn't it? Not just to have the teacher's idea, but to have your peers. So that's really useful. Okay, there's another question here, and I think we've answered these before in the past, but they are whether you would you choose this course if you wanted to do a law degree? And my answer would be, well, yes, it's an English-based subject. It teaches you a multi-skilled approach to various types of English use, and therefore, law is a sort of partner to English literature in that way, and many law students do study literature. So I think that's a very important kind of connection. So yes is the answer. I wanted to ask Darryl this is a question for you. It says, we've had this question before, do universities value the combined language and literature course less highly than they would the individual courses? So I think we've got some experience about students and where they've gone after studying this course.
Okay, so the combined, I think the universities do. Well, I know the universities do value it as much as any other course. It is a full A-level course. It receives the same UCAS points, and that obviously means it's of the same status and value. And we've sent students to the top universities in the country with English language and literature as part of their package. You know, we send students to have sent students to Cambridge and to Oxford, so obviously they accept it. So you know, yes, I would say it is, and it's you know, it's a perfectly valid and proper subject in that sense. Yeah.
Okay. There's another question from Daisy. Daisy says, will we have a teacher for each English or one teacher for both? I'm not sure. It isn't a separate course. You don't do English language and then English literature as you did at GCSE. GCSE, you have an English language paper and you have English literature paper. This is not, this is combined. So a combined course means that you're doing linguistic things with literature. So actually it's slightly different to your experience of GCSE. So what have you found the most challenging? Jemima and Hannah, a question for you because you're here. What do you think is different about the elements that you're studying from GCSE to A-level in Lit Lang? What have you found the most challenging to actually have to come to grips with?
I think the most challenging is trying to adapt to the language part because it differs quite a lot from GCSE language. Like you do less creative writing and more analysis of what certain words mean and why they've been used in that kind of context.
Yeah. So it's a different vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yes. What about you, Hannah?
I suppose it's probably the just amount of work there is compared to GCSE. When you're looking at the literary texts, there's a lot more depth into the characters and the language that is used. It's quite different, but amazing at the same time. So
we're going to, I know that you need to go soon, one of you needs to go soon. So I'm talking about the creative side and as well. One of the things I wanted you to think about or respond to in some ways, if you wanted to be a writer or you wanted to go into journalism or you wanted to write for yourself, do you think this is a good course to prepare you for it? And that equally wants to matter both of you actually.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely a good subject to take if you want to go down either of those routes. Because not only are you learning how to kind of analyze text, you're also understanding more of the language side. So the language side really helps when you kind of are speaking to an audience, I feel like, because you can almost understand how they're going to read it and why they'll read it in a certain way and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know actually now Hannah's left, so one student has left now, so that's our opportunity with them. But if there are any more questions, which I see here, that would be wonderful. So the one teacher question was, will you have a teacher for one or the other? You have two teachers generally anyway when you're doing an A-level. One you have for, you have your lessons during the week, and half of those lessons will be taken by one teacher and the other half. So it's quite nice because you get slightly different approaches, but those teachers work together. So yes, you usually have two teachers through your A-level teaching. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Just remember that it's based around text, isn't it? So the course.
Yeah.
So yes, you'll have one teacher perhaps teaching All My Sons on one side, the play, and on the other side you might have a teacher teaching the Voices text, which is, so one teacher will be teaching a literary text and one teacher teaching a non-literary text. A lot of the methods of interpreting the text are the same. You know, you need to transfer skills from one side to the other. In some ways, I wish they wouldn't call it language and literature as a course. I wish they'd call it something like rhetoric or something, and then people wouldn't be worried by this problem. It's the problem just exists because of the name of the course.
Yes, I know. It's because people, have established culturally, I suppose, traditionally, you study literature and you study language. And then suddenly when you put them together, people are asking, is that a serious course? Well, of course, it's by popular demand, actually, and it's a necessary aspect that you cannot separate these disciplines. They're integral to each other. And so it's very, very important that you see them as equally as important and as well thought of as any other A-level in literature. And we all teach on all of the courses at A-level. So, you know, it's a good partnership for other courses as well. Okay, there I haven't looked, I can't see any more questions here. Do you have any more there? No, so we want to move on then.
Okay. Oh, it exists today. Okay, so yeah, the opportunity is still there for you to ask questions, and we can answer them. So if you want to type anything in, that's fine.
So if you have any more questions, obviously you have questions, or you can actually ask any further questions that you have, should you need to do that, they won't answered today. And
I could just, sorry.
Go on.
I was just going to say, we could be, in the absence of a question, just final thing, we could put Jemima on the spot and say, because I know she likes it. She likes this, she likes to be under pressure. And just ask you, you know, what would you advise students, you know, to sort of be prepared for in the Langlit, you know, that's new? Is there something that, you know, if you had your time over again, you know, what would you like to know before you did the Langlit course? Is there anything that you could perhaps clarify for people?
I like that it's less reading than just a literature course, because I'm such a slow reader. But I wish I kind of made more notes on what I did when I actually did the course, like, because you read stuff and then because there's so much content, you just forget everything about that story and it kind of merges with other things. Yeah. So I think reading in advance and making like clear notes on the actual books you have to study, and just kind of looking back at them occasionally just to kind of reaffirm your your knowledge of them and stuff.
Yeah, that's a voice of experience there from Jemima. Thank you.
Not a quick reader.
But that's an honest response, though. I think a lot of students, you know, who quite like literature, and this is one reason for doing this course rather than literature. A lot of students who quite like reading, they don't want to not do it, but you know, perhaps aren't as committed to it as you know, students who want to go on and study literature at university or something. You know, they find this course an easier course in that sense, because it's less demanding in terms of quantity and pressure and so on. It's not an undemanding course. It's
well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure I agree with you there, because I mean, so you're not reading eight pieces of literature.
Yeah.
You're having to read a hell of a lot of other things. And actually, not are you can't get let off the hook, because you have to look at such a range of different things, and actually there's a lot of unseen material. The unseen material in Litlang is that you don't just get extracts that you've studied, you get extracts that you've never seen, and I think that is another demand.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think is demanding is, let's not underestimate that creative writing, or writing properly, is a skill that is extremely, it is an extremely difficult process. It is not writing stories as you did when you were 5 or 6 or 7. This is constructing proper narratives or proper scripts. So far be it from it being, you know, less demanding. It's just those are the differences. So it's demanding, less demanding if you're good at that. But if you're not, then you have to hone your skills. So there is another question here.
Well, it's related to what we were talking about, isn't it? Joseph's question.
Yeah. What would you say the benefit of taking this course over just taking literature or English language? And I think we'd answered that actually, Josephine. We're trying to sort of think about having your foot in two camps, as it were. One, because you can be creative in one, the other one because you're not going to, in English language, be dealing with any literature per se. You know, you're going to be studying research and debate on the mechanics of language. A great subject. It's an amazing subject, a sociological subject. You know, very different. And literally, you're just going to do, not just because it's also beautiful. You study lots of poetry, plays, and drama, but you do study writers. Here, you are studying writers, but you're not just studying fiction. You're studying non-fiction too. So and you can write creatively on this course. I suppose if you wanted to say that's a benefit.
Yeah, I think so that's a point I was trying to make earlier on. Really, some students like reading, and Langlit is demanding as any other A level. We've made that point earlier on. It's the same as any other A level, but it's probably better for those kinds of students who, like literature, but don't want to focus entirely on literature. There is reading, as Alison says, in lots of other areas, and you have to be a competent and capable reader. But if you don't want just to do literature, if you find that a little bit overwhelming, then this is a course, and it's a course that a lot of students enjoy. I mean, just look at the joy there with Jemima. She looks fantastic. There she is.
Thanks, Jemima.
So that it turned me into the man I am today.
Okay. Well, on that note,
there's a question that's just been put in.
No, there's 2 more questions now. Okay, we'll quickly deal with those. Can you clarify the differences between English literature and language combined? Well, English literature, we'll clarify again. One, English literature is you study poetry, plays and drama, so you're just studying fiction. In literature and language, you study some fiction and you study some non-fiction. How large is the creative writing element? It's always 20 in English language. Well, you have to get. I'm not dealing with English language today, but I do teach English language. 20%. It's always 20% of every A-level course is the coursework element. It used to be 40, but now it's always 20%. So if you say 20% of your course is going to be creative. And Abigail is asking, can you clarify the differences between English literature, language and combined? I think I've just done that. So it's been lovely to have you here. I hope that's informative for you. And thanks to Jemima for coming again. You were here last night. It's really very nice of you to be here again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic presentation, Carol. And we'll say goodnight to you now and hope to see you very soon. Okay.